Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we sat down with our buddy Mark Champagne. What a fine name. Today, for episode number 401, we are going to talk about living authentically. You have anything to say?
I do. So first, let's provide context. So I believe you watched a movie, documentary, show, TV show?
Yeah, man. I did.
I think living in your truth is what living authentically is. And I think that's one of the most challenging things in the world. Because, you know, I always go to the top 5 regrets of dying.
Yes.
2 of the 5, according to Bronnie Ware, one of them, the number 1, is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And then the third one is I wish I had the courage to express my true feelings. Not just to others, but also to yourself, right? It's not easy to admit, you know what, I don't like my job. I don't like my life. I don't like this relationship. I don't like my body. It's once you admit that, now you have to do something about it. And I think that admittance factor is one of the hardest, most important things. And I think you cannot live authentically if you're hiding from the truth.
So Taryn and I watched this show, as Alan alluded to, called Alone. And it's very similar, like Naked and Afraid. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. This show, they drop people off in the wilderness, and their goal is to survive there for as long as possible. There is no time limit. They're given 10 items. They can bring 10 items with them, and they have to film everything. So that's the premise of the show. Now, Taryn's brother's girlfriend's brother-in-law won the show.
Wow.
He won the show that he was on season 6, I believe. And I was inspired by his authenticity. This guy traveled, he lived in Russia for a number of years. He stayed with this tribe who herded, and I think they bred reindeers and elk and moose and all this crazy stuff. And he leans into his authenticity. His wife is super supportive of him being this outdoorsman and going and living in Russia. And he's 74 days, I think he lasted.
Wow.
In the wilderness, wild stuff. But there was some other people on this show that they didn't seem to be understood by a lot of people in their lives. And this was their journey to being their fully authentic selves. And they were so happy to be out doing what they loved. And obviously it's a struggle. And I feel imagine if you're watching this or listening to this, and maybe it's not you. Maybe you do live authentically, but I know most people, unfortunately, don't get the opportunity to. Imagine somebody that you love and you care about. You know that they're great at art, or they're great at music, or they're great with kids, or they're great with dogs. Mm-hmm. You know that they aren't being authentic to the best versions of themselves. You know that if they went into business and became a music teacher, they would be so fulfilled and so happy. Imagine how much different your life would be if you went in on what you loved and you were the most authentic version of yourself. Now, this is difficult. Alan and I still haven't figured this out. How do you be authentic all the time? That's a fine line. But especially when it comes to work. We just crossed episode 400. We're going to do a 400 episode recap. It's not work. This is our career, but it's also our passion. Yeah. And we get to be authentic every single week. We get to talk about things we want to talk about. We get to interview people we want to interview. On these microphones, this is as close to authentic as you can get. Now, is there some behind the scenes stuff that we don't talk about? Sure, because there is some level of, privacy. Not much. It's a pretty thin layer of privacy. But we get to authentically show up as who we want to be. And you guys reward us for that by listening. It's just a different life.
Imagine being in a room with people who, let's say you're at a family party, and there's a lot of family dynamics. You can't always fully I shouldn't say can't. It's really challenging to fully express who you really are while you're seeing people's reaction in the room. It's almost like every time you enter a room, you have an amalgamation, yes, I said that word, Kev, of beliefs, of core values, of goals, and you're trying to fit into a tribe. When we're on the mic, we're trying to be our authentic self. Our goal is to express our truth.
Yes.
Whereas I think on a subconscious level, when we're in a room of, people that we love, care about, naturally, if you love and care about someone, whether you admit it to yourself or not, you care about what they think of you. And I've often used the analogy of if you were to run for president and win by 53% of the vote, you would win by a landslide. They would call that a landslide. And that would be, I believe, the most percentage any president has ever gotten. It's 53 or 54%. So if you are in a room and 54% of people don't disagree with you, you win by a landslide. So on these mics, what's interesting is if you don't agree with us, you just don't listen to us. And so that's why I think we can be so authentically ourselves, is because we're not seeing and feeling the energetic judgment in real time. And if you're out there right now and you don't have a podcast, or you don't have, I guess, let me say, if you want to live authentically, you're going to have to express your truth. I've often said the suppression of self-expression leads to depression. I'm more convinced of that than ever. I went on a peak performance training recently, and the compliment that I got most was, "You're so authentic." And that's not a compliment that I've typically gotten. And I really appreciated that. And I tried to ask myself, like, what was different? I think there was a lack of fear. I think that I put my guard down and was just honest with them. Again, I've been saying truthful but honest. I feel like I've really leaned into that.
Truthful but kind.
Truthful but kind, I'm sorry. Yeah, truthful but kind. Yep. And that's what I've really leaned into. And I think that I feel more authentic than ever because I'm doing that.
I feel like right now, like, if you have to wake up and go to a job that you don't like, you're not authentic. If you are hanging out with your family all the time and you can't be who you actually are, you're not authentic. Like, imagine how much that wears on you. And like, is there pain at leaving a job and being more authentic? Yes. Is there pain at telling your boss, like, hey, this is who I actually am. I'd like to be spoken to with respect. Like, yes. Is there pain talking to your loved ones? Yes. Your family? Yes, of course. But it's a short-term, hopefully a short-term amount of pain for a long-term level of understanding. I think if you're not authentic with the people around you, how do you expect them to know you? Really? Because they don't know you because you're not presenting yourself as the real you. So I think at the end of the day, like, give little doses of authenticity as you go. That way you can kind of bridge the gap rather than saying, like, waking up one day and be like, oh, you don't understand me at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and we've been guilty of that.
For sure.
Quickly.
Yeah, last thing here. I think that you ever see like a piece of art where they're like, oh, that's not an authentic painting.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that mean when you have a sculpture or a painting that's not authentic? It means it's not the original. And so if you've outgrown your old self and you keep going back into rooms with people who love you for the way you used to be, and you're not able to be authentic with the way you are now, I would say have the courage. It takes courage. Be willing to be the new version of you and let them fall in love with that version. How could they appreciate, respect, and admire that version if you're not being it?
My 10-second blip would be, ask yourself what the best version of you, what would the most authentic version of Kevin say in this moment, right? Would he stick up for this person? Would he admit that he's wrong? Would he crack a joke at somebody else's expense so he doesn't feel bad about himself? Like, if you're asking yourself these questions throughout your day, your behavior is going to be different. Your life's going to be different. That's my 10-second blip.
Fire.
You don't have anything else to add.
10-second blip. 10-second blip.
You can't say pass.
People cannot. I would say if you're not showing up authentically, the law of attraction will not work for you anymore.
Do we want to do the 400 episode wrap up as Wednesday or Friday?
I think scratching the surface. So
long one,
the longer one,
Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we don't know what we're doing for Wednesday yet. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this, and we will talk to you. Actually, we'll talk to you tomorrow on our live training, which was what? Samantha Skelly?
Yes.
That hasn't dropped yet. Guys, absolute fire live training. If you guys listen to the Samantha Skelly episode, she is the breathwork queen. We went deep into breathwork. Literally, I think we had 25 people there. At the end of this, 22 of the 25 people were crying, including Alan and myself. Super, super powerful episode. Do not miss this one. It is going to help you with your inner self. It is fire.
And if you want to jump on a free coaching call with Kevin or myself,
yes.
He will help you start your podcast. I will help you scale your business and impact online and profitability. Go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com.
Yes.
I've been loving those free calls.
Same. Do it quickly because my clients are filling up and I only take on 5 full-time podcast clients because it takes a lot out of me and I want to give 1,000% of myself. So hurry up.
Yes.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.